Those names belong to dead babies. They don't belong to you anymore. My sister-in-law said that to me at her own baby shower. She was standing beneath a huge gold banner that read Noah and Olivia. And those weren't just two names. They were the names of my children. My twin babies. The babies my wife and I had lost before we ever got to bring them home. I stared at that banner, unable to speak. My wife, Emma, had gone completely pale beside me. And our 8-year-old daughter, Lily, was holding my hand. She looked up at me and whispered, "Dad, those are the babies' names." Then my sister-in-law Rachel looked directly at me and said something I will never forget. "You lost your babies." I didn't. I'm the one who gets to use the names now. That was the moment I understood this wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't even thoughtlessness. Rachel knew exactly what those names meant to us. And she had chosen them anyway. But what happened next was even worse. Because when I confronted her, she didn't apologize. She banned my wife and me from her house. She said our grief brought negative energy around her pregnancy. And suddenly, my entire family was telling me to stay quiet. To let it go. To be the bigger person. But there was one person who made me realize that staying silent wasn't protecting my family. It was teaching my daughter that people could hurt you, erase your pain, and then expect you to smile. That person was Lily. And because of what she said to me, I finally stopped playing nice. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm a husband, a father, and a man who learned the hard way that sometimes the people who demand family peace are really asking you to accept family cruelty. My wife Emma and I had been married for 12 years. We had one beautiful daughter, Lily. She was 8 years old, endlessly curious, and the kind of child who could make you laugh even when you were having the worst day of your life. She was our whole world. Then, 3 years before this happened, Emma became pregnant again. Except this time, we weren't expecting one baby. We were expecting twins. I still remember the day Emma told me. She handed me a little white box. Inside were 2 pairs of tiny baby socks. I stared at them. Then at her. Too. She nodded. She was crying. But she was smiling at the same time. Lily was thrilled. She immediately started planning her life as a big sister. She drew pictures for the babies. She talked to Emma's stomach. At night, she'd whisper, "Hello, babies. I'm Lily. I'm your sister." We laughed. We dreamed. We started imagining 2 cribs in the nursery. 2 little voices. 2 little personalities. 2 new members of our family. And eventually, Emma and I chose their names. Noah. And Olivia. Those names became part of our everyday lives before the babies were even born. We talked about them at dinner. We wrote them in our notes. Lily practiced saying, "My baby brother Noah and baby sister Olivia." We had no idea that those names would someday become the center of one of the most painful experiences of our lives. The pregnancy wasn't easy. There were complications. There were appointments that left us frightened. There were nights when Emma couldn't sleep because she was afraid something might go wrong. I kept telling her everything would be okay. I believed it. Or at least I needed her to believe it. Then, at 22 weeks, everything changed. We lost both babies. Noah. Olivia. There are moments in life that divide everything into before and after. That was one of them. Before that day, we were preparing for babies. After that day, we were learning how to survive without them. Emma was devastated. I was devastated too. But I had Emma. I had Lily. So I forced myself to keep moving. That night, I sat beside Emma in the hospital. The room was quiet. She stared at the ceiling for a long time. Then she whispered my name. "Daniel?" "Yes." Do you think they knew we loved them? That question nearly destroyed me. I held her hand. They knew. How do you know? Because they were ours. She closed her eyes. Then she whispered their names. Noah. A few seconds passed. Olivia. I repeated them. Noah and Olivia. We decided we would never pretend they hadn't existed. We kept a small memory book. Lily drew pictures. Emma planted 2 flowers in our garden. Every year, we said their names. Not because we couldn't move forward. Because moving forward didn't mean erasing them. Rachel, Emma's younger sister, knew all of this. She visited us after the loss. She hugged Emma. She saw the memory book. She heard the names. She even told Lily that Noah and Olivia would always be part of our family. That's why what happened next felt like such a betrayal. About a year later, Rachel announced that she was pregnant. With twins. And honestly, we were happy for her. There was no jealousy. No resentment. Emma hugged her sister and told her she was genuinely happy. I meant it too. Rachel's babies were innocent. Their happiness didn't take anything away from our children. Then one Sunday, Rachel invited the whole family to her house. She said she had a surprise. Everyone assumed it was a gender reveal. When we arrived, the house was decorated beautifully. Balloons. Flowers. Gold ribbons. A huge dessert table. Lily was excited. Rachel stood beside her husband, Mark, smiling. Then she announced, "We've finally picked the names." Everyone cheered. I smiled too. Until she pointed behind her. I looked up. And everything inside me stopped. Noah and Olivia. The names were printed in enormous gold letters. For a few seconds, I couldn't move. Emma couldn't move either. Then Lily grabbed my hand. "Dad." I looked down. She was staring at the banner. "Those are the babies' names." I couldn't answer. Emma finally looked at Rachel. "You named your babies Noah and Olivia?" Rachel smiled. "Yes." "Why?" Rachel shrugged. "Because we like the names." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "You knew." Rachel rolled her eyes. "I knew you liked them." Liked them. That word still bothers me. Because these weren't names we'd casually mentioned once. They belonged to 2 children we'd lost. Rachel knew that. She'd seen our grief. She'd seen the memory book. She'd seen Lily's drawings. I stepped forward. "Rachel, you knew those were the names we gave our twins." She looked directly at me. "They're not alive, Daniel." The room went silent. My daughter squeezed my hand harder. Rachel continued. "You can't claim names forever just because you lost your babies." I felt my anger rising. But I stayed calm. "You could have talked to us first." She laughed. "Why?" "So you could ask me not to use them." Emma started crying. I put my arm around her. Then Rachel said the sentence that made me realize exactly how little she understood what she'd done. "This is why I didn't tell you earlier. I knew you'd make my pregnancy about your grief." I looked around the room. Our parents were there. Relatives were there. Friends were there. Everyone knew what those names meant. And yet nobody spoke. That silence was almost as painful as Rachel's words. I finally said, "We're not asking you to stop loving your babies. We're asking you to understand why this hurts." Rachel folded her arms. "I'm not responsible for your feelings." She was right about one thing. She wasn't responsible for our feelings. But she was responsible for her choices. And choosing those names after knowing exactly what they meant was a choice. The next morning, Rachel sent a message to the family group. She said she wanted a peaceful pregnancy. She said she didn't want negative energy around her babies. Then she told Emma and me not to come to her house. Not for dinner. Not for family gatherings. Not for the baby shower. Not after the babies were born. She said she needed healthy energy around her children. Emma handed me her phone. I read the message twice. Rachel had banned us from her home. Because our grief was apparently bad luck. I called her. She didn't answer. So I called Mark. I asked him, "Is this serious?" He sighed. "Daniel, Rachel is pregnant. She's emotional. She just called my wife and me negative energy. She just wants peace." Peace? Yes. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You understand she's using the names of our dead children and then banning us because we're grieving? There was a long silence. Then Mark said, "Maybe you should just let it go." That became the family's favorite phrase. Let it go. Move on. Don't ruin the pregnancy. Think about the babies. Don't create drama. Be the bigger person. But every time someone told us to let it go, what they really meant was, please absorb the pain quietly so we don't have to deal with it. Lily noticed everything. One evening, she asked me, "Dad, why can't we go to Aunt Rachel's house?" I didn't want to explain adult cruelty to her. So I said, "Aunt Rachel wants some space." Lily thought about it. Then she asked, "Because of Noah and Olivia?" I nodded. She looked confused. "But there are names." "Yes." She stared at me. "Are they still our babies?" My throat tightened. "Yes. Even though they're not here." I pulled her into my arms. "Always." Then she asked the question I couldn't answer. "Then why does Aunt Rachel get to use their names?" I didn't know what to say. Because she was right. Over the next few weeks, the family became divided. Some relatives privately told us they understood. But publicly, they stayed silent. Others told Emma she was too attached to the names. One aunt said, "Those babies would want you to be happy." Emma looked at her and said, "You don't get to tell me what my children would want." Another relative told me, "Rachel is carrying 2 healthy babies. Can't you just be happy for her?" I am happy for her. Then act like it. That's when I realized they weren't asking us to forgive. They were asking us to erase ourselves. They wanted the family photograph to look peaceful. They didn't care what was happening underneath it. I tried to stay quiet. For Emma. For Lily. For our parents. For the family. But eventually, Emma looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "You're trying to protect everyone." I said, "I'm trying to protect you." She shook her head. "No. You're protecting Rachel from consequences. You're protecting our parents from choosing sides. You're protecting everyone except us." That stopped me. She was right. So I made a decision. I was done protecting people who weren't protecting my family. The baby shower happened on a Saturday. We weren't invited. But that morning, I saw a photograph online. Rachel was standing beneath the same gold banner. Noah and Olivia. She was smiling. People were commenting. Beautiful names. Congratulations. Perfect. Then someone wrote, "What a lovely tribute." I stared at those words. A tribute? No. It wasn't a tribute. Rachel hadn't apologized. She hadn't acknowledged our loss. She had simply taken the names and turned them into part of her celebration. Then Lily saw the photograph. "Dad?" I turned my phone over. She already knew. "It's Aunt Rachel, isn't it?" "Yes." "Did she use the names again?" I nodded. Lily looked at me sadly. Then she said, "Dad, if you don't tell the truth, people will think those names were never ours." I stared at my daughter. She was 8 years old. But she understood something I hadn't. Silence wasn't protecting the memory. It was helping erase it. That evening, I wrote a message to the entire family. I didn't insult Rachel. I didn't threaten her. I didn't attack her pregnancy. I simply told the truth. I explained that Noah and Olivia were the names Emma and I had chosen for our twins. I explained that Rachel knew exactly what those names meant. I explained that we weren't trying to own two names. We were asking for basic compassion. And then I wrote, "We will not be pressured into pretending our children never existed simply because acknowledging them makes someone else uncomfortable." I sent the message. Then I put my phone down. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. Then the replies started. Some people supported us. Others said we were creating drama. Rachel responded. She called me obsessed. She said I was trying to steal attention from her pregnancy. She accused Emma of manipulating the family. Then Mark said they had every right to name their children whatever they wanted. I replied, "You absolutely do." Then I added, "And we have the right to decide what relationship we have with people who knowingly use our deepest loss against us." Rachel called me immediately. She was furious. "You had no right to send that message." I told the truth. "You embarrassed me." "I didn't say anything that wasn't true." "You made me look terrible." I paused. Then I said, "Rachel, I didn't make you look terrible. I described what happened." She started crying. Then she said, "You don't understand what pregnancy is like." "Maybe I don't. But you don't get to judge me." "I'm not judging you." "Yes, you are." "No. I'm giving you a choice." "What choice?" "Treat us with compassion, or accept the consequences of treating us without it." There was silence. Then she said, "You're banned from my house permanently." I said, "That's okay." She sounded shocked. "What?" I said, "That's okay. You don't care." "I care. But I don't need access to your house to love my family." She hung up. The next week, relatives started calling. My mother said I'd gone too far. My father said I should apologize. Emma's mother cried and said she didn't want the family to fall apart. I listened. Then I said, "The family didn't fall apart when Rachel hurt Emma. It fell apart when everyone decided the easiest solution was to silence her." Nobody had an answer. And for the first time, I stopped trying to convince everyone. We created our own traditions. On the anniversary of our twins' loss, we went into the garden. Lily brought 2 flowers. Emma brought the memory book. I brought 2 candles. We said their names. Noah. Olivia. Lily wrote a card. "To my brother and sister. I wish I could have met you." Emma cried. I cried. But the tears felt different. They weren't only pain anymore. They were love. Months later, Rachel gave birth to twins. She named them Noah and Olivia. I knew she would. And by then, I had accepted something important. Those babies weren't responsible for what their mother had done. They deserved love. They deserved happiness. And our children still deserve to be remembered. Both things could exist at the same time. I didn't contact Rachel. I didn't contact the babies. I simply kept my distance. Then, eventually, Mark reached out. He asked if we could meet. We sat in a coffee shop. He looked exhausted. He told me the family had become tense. Then he asked, "Don't you want to fix things?" "Yes." Then why aren't you trying? I am. How? By refusing to lie. He looked down. Then he said. Rachel thinks you hate her. I don't hate her. What do you feel? I thought for a moment. Disappointed. He nodded. Then he asked. What would it take to fix this? I answered. An apology. For the names. For everything. For calling your grief negative energy. Yes. For banning you. Yes. For knowing the names mattered. Yes. He was quiet. Then he said. I'll talk to her. Weeks passed. Nothing happened. Then, almost a year later, Emma received a message from Rachel. It was short. I know I handled everything badly. Emma showed me. I didn't tell her what to do. I simply said. It's your choice. She stared at the message. Then she replied. Thank you for acknowledging it. That was it. No dramatic reunion. No instant forgiveness. Just acknowledgement. Eventually, we met. Rachel brought the twins. They were tiny. Beautiful. Completely innocent. I looked at them and felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. Not because everything was suddenly okay. But because I finally understood that my children didn't need me to fight the world forever. They needed me to remember them. Rachel's children could have the names Noah and Olivia. That didn't erase my children. It didn't erase the memory book. It didn't erase the flowers. It didn't erase the hospital room. It didn't erase Lily's drawings. And it certainly didn't erase the love. Rachel eventually apologized to Emma. She apologized to me. And she apologized to Lily. She got down in front of my daughter and said. I was wrong to make you feel like your brother and sister didn't matter. Lily looked at her. Then she said. They matter to Dad. Rachel nodded. They matter to me too. Lily thought about it. Then she said. Okay. That was Lily's way of giving her a chance. Not forgetting. Not pretending. Just giving her a chance. Things never went completely back to the way they were. And honestly, I don't think they should have. Because forgiveness doesn't mean giving someone the same access to you that they had before they hurt you. You can forgive someone and still have boundaries. You can love someone and still disagree with them. You can wish someone well and still decide they don't belong in every part of your life. Most importantly, you can move forward without leaving the people you lost behind. For a long time, I thought moving on meant leaving Noah and Olivia behind. Now I understand that moving forward means carrying them with us. Their lives were short. But they were real. Their names were real. Their place in our family was real. And nobody can take that away. Not Rachel. Not the relatives who told us to stay quiet. Not anyone. My sister-in-law eventually got the happy ending she wanted. She has 2 beautiful children. I sincerely hope they grow up healthy, safe, and loved. But my family has its own story. A story about 2 babies who never got to come home. A mother who loved them. A father who loved them. And an older sister who still remembers them. I still have that memory book. The first page has 2 names. Noah. Olivia. Underneath them, Emma wrote. We didn't get enough time with you, but we will never run out of love for you. I used to read those words and cry. Now I read them and smile. Because grief doesn't disappear. It changes. You learn how to carry it. And today, I carry it with dignity. I don't need Rachel's permission to remember my children. I don't need my family's approval to honor them. And I don't need anyone else to understand my grief for it to be real. If you've ever been told to stay quiet because telling the truth would make your family uncomfortable, remember this. You are allowed to tell your story. You are allowed to set boundaries. You are allowed to protect the memories that matter to you. And you are allowed to walk away from people who only love you when you're convenient. My name is Daniel Carter. I lost 2 children before I ever got to hold them. But I never lost their place in my heart. And that's something nobody can ban me from. If this story touched you, tell me in the comments. Was Daniel right to confront his sister-in-law, or should he have stayed silent to keep the family together? I genuinely want to know what you would have done in his place. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next emotional family story. Because sometimes the deepest wounds don't come from strangers. They come from the people who already know exactly where it hurts. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't revenge. It's standing up, telling the truth, setting boundaries, and refusing to let anyone erase the people you love. Thank you for listening.